Today in Conversations That Convert, we have a very special guest with us from Cornerstone Remodeling and Render. And you're going to love to hear AJ's story and how he scaled his business from 2 to 8 million in about 3 years. So let's go ahead and get started.
Welcome to Conversations That Convert. Every week, we'll spend about 10 to 15 minutes tackling relevant lead generation, marketing, and sales topics for remodelers, home improvement companies, and home builders. Conversations That Convert is brought to you by Builder Lead Converter, your perfect sales assistant. And now, here's Rick and Diana.
Hey, welcome to Conversations That Convert. Diana is off today, but we have a very special guest with us today. I'd like to welcome AJ Ballantine from Render and Cornerstone Remodeling. AJ, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, Rick, for having me on the podcast.
We are really excited to learn more about your story. I met AJ just a couple of weeks ago. We met at the Connect conference down in Dallas for JobTread software. AJ was a sponsor, as was I, and he had a really, really great story to tell, not only on how he scaled his remodeling business, but what he discovered and developed as part of that, and now how he's sharing that with other remodelers as well. So AJ, give us a little background on yourself. Who are you? What have you done to be here talking to me?
Yeah, sure. So I cut my teeth, in the wood shop with growing up with my dad and my grandfather. They were both in the trades. When I grew up, I had a distinct passion for design and architecture. So I ended up in college for that. Ended up opening up my own design build company, realizing that I didn't want to spend my entire life in a design studio. I wanted to actually get out there and swing hammers and so on. So launched my own design build back in 2011. And from there, we've scaled the company up to where I'm actually no longer involved in that business. It's still up and running. I still own it. But I've been able to successfully step away now that we've reached a certain scale to actually focus on what was, something unanticipated was my move into the software business. So that's been the latest turn of my life. But ultimately, I grew up in the construction trades, and I live, breathe, eat, and sleep, in construction talk. So still there. A lot of the software guys that I am now hanging out with, and call employees or coworkers, they get to hear a lot about the industry and what makes it tick.
Yeah, absolutely. We have very similar backgrounds. I started as a framer right out of high school, and learned. And I use that term loosely. I was really a laborer. I picked up garbage to start with, and they let me work my way up to framing and signing. But yes, we both have humble beginnings for sure. So Cornerstone was your remodeling. That was your design build remodeling firm. You started that in 2011. You hit kind of a wall in 2020 when COVID came around. And tell us a little bit about your story and what happened.
Yeah, I mean, so there's really two walls, or I guess a wall and a glass ceiling, kind of the way that I describe it. I think for a lot of the industry, there's a couple of glass ceilings that you have when you're first starting out. It's just you, maybe you and a partner, and you're really just trying to get a foothold in the market. And then you end up adding employees. And once you start adding employees, there's the next glass ceiling, which is you're still heavily involved in your business. You're trying to figure out what the next step looks like, but it's going to require a heck of a lot of work. And for us, it was right around $2 million. It was that $2 million in revenue mark. And we had coasted there for, I would say, a good 3 to 4 years. We were bumping up against that $2 million mark. And then, of course, we made a decision to grow our business in the end of our strategy meeting at the end of 2019. Going into 2020 was the year that we decided that we were going to do all these amazing things. We were going to, double our revenue. And sure enough, everybody knows what happened during COVID. Here in Maryland, the restrictions weren't so tight. But one thing that we saw was that our customers were very reluctant to have us in their homes. So we ended up shutting our business down to preserve the backlog that we had, just to shift it back. We had some cash reserves that we were kind of sitting on. So we decided to shut our company down for 2 months while we waited for things to clear up. We didn't know how long this was going to take. And then, that way we could just kind of come back and attack that backlog of work. One thing that we saw, though, was that all of my sales leads were not necessarily drying up, but I couldn't go anywhere with them, right? We were still getting people that were calling us for work. They wanted us to remodel their homes, but I couldn't get into their homes to actually measure the space and talk to them about what they want to do. So for us, my thought process then shifted to, okay, if I'm going to continue to grow this year and take this initiative, what we started, I needed to figure out a way I can get further along in the sales process so that when we opened back up, I had work to come back to. Because we were going to blow through that backlog pretty quick. And so we got pretty creative. We came up with this initiative at the time that we called Remote Quote. I called my web guy and said, hey, we're changing our process on our process page. We want people to submit photos, 8 photos of a space. They would do that. My designer and I would actually build a model of the home and as-built, so we can design it, estimate it, get it out the door. We knew that these were preliminary quotes. We had disclaimers left and right. Hey, we're still going to have to come out and measure and validate, a lot of the assumptions we're making about the space. But ultimately, it was allowing us to get quotes in our homeowners' hands faster. We were promising them in 48 hours. When we got to the end of 2020, we looked back and said, holy moly, we just went from 2 to 3 million. Now, granted, it wasn't the 4 we had, had these aspirations to hit. But we went from $2 to $3 million. $1 million was sold completely remotely. And when we looked at it, we said, okay, wait, we just sold $1 million worth of work completely remotely. So not only was that easier, more convenient, but then we started to look at our conversion percentages on our conversion rate for homeowners that actually move forward. And we realized that the closing percentage was exactly the same selling remotely versus selling in person. And what that told us was that all of the jobs that we didn't get, that we had this remote procedure in place for, we spent at maximum 30 minutes on those jobs. When we looked at all the other jobs that we lost that we actually went out to in person, we had 4, 6, 8, 10 hours invested into those appointments and the manual entry time for us to actually build these models. So we realized at that point we had an idea that was really going to shake us up. So we then kind of turned around and said, okay, let's hone in on this process because this could be big for us. And it sure was. We went from 3 to 6 million to 7 and to 8 now. And we haven't had to add to our sales team. So I have one sales guy now. It used to be me as the sales guy. I've replaced myself with a sales guy, and he has gone from his best year of selling 4 million to selling $8 million worth of work last year. And like I said, without adding any additional overhead to my company, it's allowed us to kind of step into this new threshold of, again, being able to free me up completely. I have maybe 3-4 hours a week that I work in my remodeling business right now. If I didn't have another company running right now, I don't know what I would do with my time. But it's been an amazing journey to figure out how well this process can really help contractors actually springboard themselves to that next level without this overwhelming burden of 80-90 hour work weeks to get systems and processes in place to help offset the overhead that you then have to bring in to grow your company.
So let me just pause here, and I want to go back because you said something that any remodeler listening to this is like, there's no way that's possible. You guys are doing design build, higher end remodeling. So these are kitchens, bathrooms, basements, additions, et cetera, et cetera. You have one sales guy, and he's producing $8 million a year in sales. One guy.
To put it in even greater perspective, this same sales guy, Chris is his name. You can look him up on LinkedIn. He's real. He and the team, it's not just him. He does have some support. We have 2 designers on staff as well as an architect as well. But ultimately, he's the point person for these sales. My sales team sold $1 million worth of work in November of 23, and then did it again in December, sold another $1 million worth of work in December of 2023. That was over $2 million worth of work sold in a 7-week span.
Yeah, in the holidays, no less.
Holiday season, it's still dealing with some economic tension. I wouldn't call it a recession. It's just people are being a little bit more, they're dragging their feet more. I don't know about you, but one thing that we've learned from a lot of conversations in roundtables and other people we're networked with is that the closing cycle, the closing time for our industry has just gotten so much longer. And maybe so much is relative term, but it has gotten incrementally longer over the past 6 months. Closing, people will get a contract and then they'll wait 3 weeks to sign it. We have gone from, an average of 11, maybe 11 and a half week closing time from learning about a lead to the time that we have a build contract in place. And we shrunk that almost instantly to 7 weeks with this new process. And we've actually gotten it down closer to just about 6 weeks, maybe just a skosh under 6 weeks, but that's our bread and butter. So full-on design build, average job size is anywhere between $150,000 to $250,000, and we're getting to build contracts in roughly 6 weeks. So again, it's not just render. I'm not going to keep plugging it. It's not just render. There's a lot of meat that goes into how we're churning these estimates out faster, the designs out faster, the follow-ups, the accountability of the sales team. But really, it's about building the confidence of the customer up so much that they have no other desire than to continue moving forward, because they don't want to lose steam, right? So there's a lot that goes into that.
You guys have, so you cut that time cycle really in half.
Yes.
And I know you use the term, the phrase, turn 10 hours into 10 minutes, which is the tool that you're using as render. So yeah, we get it. There's still internal processes and systems and improvements, and you're always measuring and trying to improve all that. But I think the main thing, the takeaway that I'm hearing you say is you radically changed your process of taking that lead call, that initial lead, all the way to contract, to take where one guy can produce $8 million a year in business. You've stepped away as CEO of the company, and now you're just really managing from more of a board of directors standpoint, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So now everyone that's listening is asking, like, okay, what is render? Like, what did you do? Like, how did you do this? And so tell us a little bit more about what you guys developed.
Yeah. So render is a direct correlation from our remote quote initiative that we had in 2020. It was a very rudimentary process that we turned into an actual software as a solution. So render is a software that we developed that allows contractors to engage remotely with their customers through the entire sales cycle. One easy way to picture in your head is, I've asked this question when I've spoken at conferences, is, as a contractor, have you ever wished that you could actually DoorDash your measurements to your office instead of having to drive out to your client's home to actually collect the measurements and document the site? Do you ever wish that you could actually DoorDash that to your office, that you never have to leave? And that's what we do. So it's all done digitally through an invite. It's one part of our software. Is our core differentiator is that we can actually invite a homeowner to scan their space with their iPhone. And what happens is when the homeowner gets a link, they just walk around the room, literally this easy, and they hit done, they add some photos, and that's it. They can put their phone down. It maybe takes 2 or 3 minutes to capture an entire floor plan. No user input, so no homeowner error. We had to emphasize this when we developed the software. I needed my 5-year-old daughter to be able to create a floor plan for me. And from our prototype on, she was able to do it, which was incredible. So as soon as a homeowner's done, what I get on my side is a notification that says, hey, so-and-so homeowner just completed this scan. I can go into my render app. I can pull up the entire floor plan. It's scaled, all the measurements for all my walls, my windows, my doors. I have elevations showing window heights. I've got photos of the space. All of that is all instantly received on my side. And then I can export that data, whether it be PDF, markup with notes for my design team. I can export DXF files that work with any CAD software out there. We do have a unique chief architect integration through that DXF, which is really fun. It's the primary software we use.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea for us with Render was focusing on all of the things that bog the process down for, right now focused on design build companies, but, a lot of remodelers have the same bottlenecks of when a lead comes in to the time that you're ready to sit down and actually estimate that project. There's so much that happens in between those two steps that takes what we've found is roughly about 10 hours worth of work that happens between those two spots. And we can do it in 10 minutes. We can send an invite, collect the measurements, sit down, push that data into Chief Architect. Soon there's going to be some fun estimation integrations that we're going to be working on through other project management platforms in the space. The idea is to take that 10 hours and do it in 10 minutes. So I can actually get into my office on a Monday morning, and instead of picking up the phone and chasing leads down that emailed in over the weekend, what I can get is actually someone emailed in over the weekend. They got an auto response from my Render account that said, hey, scan your space. They scanned it. I sit down on Monday morning with a floor plan, a CAD file, and the ability to push those into, through other workflow enhancements, push it into estimation software, CAD software, and whatever, so that I can, get along with my day. When we developed the software, like I said, it was really honing in on what are the things that bog design build companies down the absolute most. And really, there's a lot of things that bog us down, but primarily on the upfront side, before a lot of us are getting paid, or at least getting paid what we should be getting paid, it was how can we cut a lot of that out of our process? We can pre-qualify better. We have this term that we say pre-quotify. A lot of design build companies say that their leads are not really pre-qualified until you get to that initial budget conversation. And we're helping facilitate that budget conversation from the moment you pick up the phone or hop on that initial discovery call on Zoom. You have a floor plan, you're looking at the size of the space. You can have an intelligent conversation about how much things are actually going to cost before you take any further action, going out to their home, providing design agreements, anything like that.
I love it. And it's just amazing to think about the simplification and also the streamlining of what you're talking about. So a couple of questions came up for me. Number one is, once you get that information back from the lead, do you charge a fee to move them forward into, say, putting together an estimate? Do you call them up and just give them a general budget range and then just see if that's in the budget range and then charge a fee for going forward? What does that process look like?
It's going to look different for a lot of different contractors. At Cornerstone, we actually use this data to inform our design agreements. So when we have a discovery call, whether we have gotten the invite scanned successfully back from the customer, that's the best, because on that discovery call, we can actually pull up their floor plan and talk intelligently about the space. What we found is that they take our word for our budget assessment a heck of a lot more than just pulling a number out of thin air about, hey, this project's typically cost around this amount. We're literally looking at your floor plan. It's as if we're having this conversation in your home. And I can tell you right now, based on the size of your kitchen, this is absolutely going to cost you somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000. They take our word for it more when we have data to support the size of their space. But ultimately, for Cornerstone, we will either use that in the initial discovery call, or we'll use it post-discovery call to at least get a more informed design agreement out to our homeowner. So we're actually trying our best to avoid having to go out to the home at all until we're getting paid to go out there.
Sure.
But we're not talking about a $200, $500, measurement fee or consultation fee. What we found is that homeowners don't place any value on our time to go out and meet them, measure them. They don't care. They're $500 for my time doesn't mean anything to them. Mm-hmm. What they needed was something of value. What would they want to purchase from me this early on? And it is the promise that we're going to give you some rock solid designs and estimates on this project. But those things cost a lot of money. So our design agreements are typically 4% of the target price for the project. So
median budget.
Yep, exactly. So if the target price was, $200,000, 180 to 220, our target's 200. That design agreement goes out for $8,000, and that's what it takes to get us out to your home. It's selling that that I think a lot of contractors have trouble with figuring who's going to pay $8,000 for me just taking my word for it. And that's again what Render is really here to help, is like, you're not just taking my word for it. We're having a lot of information transfer back and forth prior to you having to pay that amount for something that, before was a little harder for us to sell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So, and then the other question I had, and I want to come back to that, but the other question I had is that when you push that information from Render into Chief Architect, as an example, does it reduce the amount of time to create that drawing? And, like I talked to a guy the other day, and he's like, I'm kind of limited right now what I can produce because of the amount of time I spend in Chief for each one of these projects. But if you can reduce that time in Chief, obviously that helps you not only in the sales end, but on your design end as well. So now your designers can handle more business. So what does that look like?
There's a huge synergy between the sales and design, especially for design builds. Obviously, a lot of times it's the same department or even the same people. But for us, there's a couple different players. It is incredible how much more we are able to produce and how much faster we can produce it, leveraging Render's CAD to walls export that gets into Chief Architect. No joke, I can scan this basement. I'm in my basement office. My basement is roughly 1,600 square feet. I could scan this entire basement in roughly maybe 2.5 minutes. I can airdrop this to my computer or email it to my architect. Mm-hmm. That file you can drag and drop into Chief Architect, and literally in 30 seconds, I can have all of the walls, windows, and doors automatically built, my entire as-built, finished, done, ready for me to actually begin designing in. 30 seconds. You don't have to take my word for it. There's YouTube videos. Schedule a demo with me. I'm happy. I love showing people what we've done with Chief Architect, and this is just the beginning too. I mean, we're talking about, can we shave that? Can we make it instant? There's a lot of fun conversations we're having at making these things just, kind of customer scan, and I have a file in Chief Architect when I open my eyes in the morning. That's ideal.
What about 3Ds in Chief? Does it do anything for 3D?
Yeah, so in Chief Architect, what it'll do is it'll actually place all of your doors and windows on your walls. Chief Architect is using your default, so it's automatically building that 3D model for you. So it's using your wall layer, window layer, door layer, and placing those things using your default settings. So it's all automatically building that 3D, and that's just Chief Arc. There's SketchUp, Revit 2020, Pro Kitchen, Vectorworks. All of those other softwares can still import the DXF file. It comes in as a line drawing. We do have a 3D DXF that helps facilitate some things in AutoCAD, but ultimately it's just how can we speed that process along. And right now with Chief Architect, we're the most excited about that integration, almost selfishly, just because we use Chief Architect for my own remodeling company. And it's be more competitive. There's a stat out there. It's linked somewhere in our investor pitch deck, which over 60% of all bids that are awarded to contractors end up going to the contractor that got the bid in first.
Yeah, sure.
So there's a huge emphasis on speed to provide homeowners the information that they are looking for. And for us, what we've seen is that conversion percentage, right? We had, and this is something that I'm sure there's a thread to pull here for a later conversation, but we noticed in 2023, we were driving a ton of traffic to our website, but still we were getting very few appointments, and we kept cranking up and spending more and more on Google ads, but still same amount of appointments. It's that conversion that we saw that was lacking. So we honed in on that. We said, how can we increase our conversions? It was, removing friction from the front end. We made it very easy, but we noticed fast and convenient had to be the number one thing that we improved upon in all the processes on the front side to get more conversions from our MQLs to our SQLs. And fast and convenient is exactly what millennials want. So all the process that we put in place not only helped our business get into a better position where we're actually successfully selling more now, but over the next decade, there's going to be more and more millennials entering the remodeling hemisphere for us. And that's the type of process that they crave as well. So not only are we positioning our company now for success now, but we're also positioning it for greater success over the next decade as our buyer demographic dramatically shifts to more millennials.
And you mentioned iPhone, so you can scan with an iPhone. Is it only work on iPhone? Does it work on Android as well?
Yeah, currently we notice that LiDAR gives us the accuracy that we want on the early side. We don't want to mislead a homeowner in thinking that they can do one thing when they honestly can't. We noticed a greater bit of accuracy and consistency with LiDAR, and LiDAR sensors in mobile devices are honestly just restricted to iOS Pro devices at the moment. We anticipate that to change over the next couple of years, and have more LiDAR sensors in Android devices and even like non-flagship iPhones.
Okay.
But until that happens, we are actually committed to having more successful invites come back from homeowners. I think that's where the accuracy conversation ends up being kind of secondary to the time savings of actually collecting at least some ballpark measurements. So we are looking at expanding to, at first, all iPhones, hopefully by the end of this year, and then getting into, we actually have an Android prototype out. We'd love it if any of your people listening to this podcast are Android users. They want to beta test this Android version that we have. Consistency in measurements is like the number one thing that we want to make sure we're providing our contractors. So if anything, once the LiDAR scanners come into more devices, that's when we'll really be able to expand our market across Android and iPhone. So
for the iPhone Pro right now, what do you typically get for a variance from as built to what you get, say, from render?
In most cases, especially when you're scanning just a single room, it's within an inch of everything. Inch on door measurements, window measurements, elevation heights, even walls that are longer than 20, 30 feet. When we're scanning large spaces, 2,000 square foot and more, or if there's a lot of rooms, what we're relying on is the phone's memory capacity to understand exactly what it's building. You can actually watch it building the model as you go. And it's trying to justify differences in measurements that it's picking up in between rooms to try to straighten out lines. So here and there, we'll notice in large scans, we may be 3 or 4 inches off in some rooms and dead on in others. For us, the ambiguity of knowing where we're getting the accurate measurements versus where we're not is enough for us to know that, hey, we always go back and measure anyway. So it's the old adage, measure twice, cut once. We were always measuring once, and then we were always sending somebody back to go verify, the measurements prior to placing cabinet orders and window orders. So if we're doing that anyway, why not spend a whole heck of a lot less time up front, since we're sending somebody back to verify measurements at the end, and we just verify everything. Yeah. One tip that we usually leave with contractors is, when homeowners are doing it, I mean, the time savings alone is enough to justify the accuracy. But when you're scanning in person, so a lot of our contractors will buy an iPad or they'll use their iPhone, they'll scan when they're going out to consultations. Ultimately, it's just to build that floor plan faster and digitally. It's digitally stored, it's digitally transferred into your CAD software. What we'll do at Cornerstone is we'll actually measure some key areas. So if we're doing a first floor reno with a focus on the kitchen, we'll scan the entire first floor, and then we'll mark that drawing up. And we'll just go into the kitchen and we'll snap a couple measurements. We'll get the kitchen window, we'll get an alcove, and we'll just jot those measurements down on that plan, save it, done. That way, when we actually do create the as-built, it's pulling all the measurements from render, whether they're accurate to within an inch or 4 inches. But we can focus on the kitchen and say, okay, these are the measurements that we actually took in person. We'll just adjust a couple of those things to make it spot on, so we don't have to worry about it. But that's just one tip from the Cornerstone team that we like to share with all of our render users.
Yeah, we appreciate that. So this all sounds wonderful, right? So now I'm playing devil's advocate for somebody listening to this. Like, okay, AJ, a lot of people that I remodel for, they're 55, 60 plus, they're kind of tech adverse. What if following your process and you say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, I want you to do this. And they say, oh, AJ, this is too hard. Can you just come out to my house? How do you handle that through Cornerstone?
One, you'd be surprised at how many of our boomers customers actually love doing this. They think it's the coolest thing ever. So don't discount that. But honestly, that's one of our primary objections that we get is whether the homeowners don't feel comfortable scanning, or if the contractor says, hey, look, I'm here to sell my personality. It's not me, as a hard pressure salesman. I want my customers to fall in love with with me, my personality, my character, they're going to, when they meet me, that's when they want to buy the remodeling project from my company. That's how we operate at Cornerstone. We sell our personalities more than anything. We're fun, relatable, energetic salespeople, and they buy that. So it's like, okay, well, will I lose that personal connection that I build with the homeowner? And certainly when we go out to our homes, on discovery calls on Zoom, we can still get that out. So we can still do it virtually, number one. But number two, if we do still find the need to go out, and in a lot of cases we still do, we are spending less time measuring and more time talking with our homeowners.
Sure.
So where we would block off a 2-hour appointment window and try to get out of the house in, say, 90 minutes or so, we're getting out of the house in 30 minutes because we can take 2 or 3 minutes to scan and measure the space, spend the rest of the time talking with the homeowner. What do you want to do? What are you seeing? What do you envision? I see here that you've got 460 square feet in this family room. Are you interested in doing flooring in there? It's probably going to add $25,000 in your flooring costs. It's the instant data. Oh yeah, this room is massive. You got this wall is 26 feet long. We're spending less time measuring, more time talking with our homeowners, getting out the door faster, getting back to our office with digital information, putting it into our CAD software in seconds, turning out designs, turning out estimates, within a matter of 2-3 days rather than 2 or 3 weeks. That's the key. That's the winner for Cornerstone.
So let's talk a little bit now about the estimate, because you referenced it earlier. We met at JobTread. Obviously, JobTread is a production management software, and there's an estimating function in there. And so as far as connecting to something like a JobTread or similar, is that what's in the future now for Render?
Yeah, basically we're looking at all estimation softwares that are predominantly used in the design build space. JobTread is one of our favorites just because their CEO, Eric, he is very intentional about connecting with the entire ecosystem with an open API. So for us, it's just an easy build, right? We can connect all of the data that you get from a render scan to all the areas in JobTread that you could possibly need that data. For example, in estimating, when you go to put together an estimate and you're doing a second floor focused on the master bedroom, the primary bathroom, but they want to add carpet in all the other rooms, paint all the other rooms, bring the whole second floor up, update it all. We have to then go through and figure out how much is it going to cost to paint all of these bedrooms, all of these closets, put carpet in all of these rooms. And it's calculations that we build in our head or on paper in Excel or in JobTread. Very manual. The idea for us is, well, let's just put all the data from the render scan right where JobTread can access it. So when you go in to say, hey, I want you to go grab this scan for this project, select rooms 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, and 11. I want to add that to my paint number. You can build formulas in JobTread that are saved, and you have paint formulas that say, multiply this square footage by this multiplier, add this for ceiling paint, add this for flooring protection, so on, and it'll automatically spit out your numbers. Yeah. For flooring, I mean, you name it. You can build formulas so that you can almost automatically create estimates just by telling, right, hey, these are the areas that we're affecting. Apply those square footage numbers to it. I mean, we're talking very granular data. I mean, the information we get from a render scan is, if you think about paintable wall surface area, get me all of my elevations minus my door and window openings. I need ceiling, I need trim paint, linear feet of base molding, linear feet of casing, square footage of all the available doors in the space times 2 because you're painting both sides. Mm-hmm. All of that data is going to be instantly available. So that's what we're committed to. Again, we have the design extensions. Now we're focused on, estimating extensions. How fast can we put together an estimate? Because I'll tell you what, least favorite part of my job as a design build professional is putting together estimates. Yeah.
And that's especially if you're a people person, right? Like you want to be like in front of the customer and talking and like going back and doing that work. It's like, put it off. But yeah, I completely get it. And that makes so much sense. It's just use unit pricing, take those measurements you have, put it through a formula, it spits out a budget, and then you can quickly tell somebody. So,
and that's another one of those things that I alluded to earlier. It's not just one single process, not one single software. It's it's taking a look, scrutinizing your entire tech stack, your entire process, your entire organization, and honing in on where am I bleeding the most, and how can I shorten the amount of time. And that's definitely one of them that we saw. Is like we spend a heck of a lot of time building and altering estimates. Can we do it faster?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just summarize here from an outsider looking in, and I can tell you, and maybe you realize this already, maybe you don't, but just to simplify it for the audience, is what you have done is that you have really separated yourself as a builder and a consultant. So by using the render software, creating the designs, creating the design agreement, and then giving them that initial budget, so you're talking about the 4% upfront, that is your advisory role. So what you're selling is really that advisory role, and what you're giving the customer is simply the answer to their questions. It's like, AJ, how much remodeling project can I get for how little money, right? Because everyone wants the most for the least. And so you're answering those questions. But through the process of answering those questions, you are developing trust and are seeing value for what you're doing. And your process alone is differentiating yourself from your competitors. So the next competitor comes out there and they're doing it old school and they're like, wow, these guys are, I mean, this is phenomenal what you did. And what you've done is you've set the stage for what they can expect that fulfillment process to be like when the project actually starts. So when trust and value are established, then as far as that price that you offer them, it's a perception. If they feel like, hey, you're the best one to solve their problem, I'm gonna pay you what you're asking because you're better than anyone else.
And when we're the only ones, or one of maybe three other ones that are offering design agreements, if we're the most expensive, I think about it this way: when you are building a confident buyer, what it means is like what you said is like when you're setting the expectation up front that we are so professional, we are so fast, we are so communicative, we're spending more time talking about your project and building a lot of confidence in our ability to pull it off, getting you real-time data, we're tech forward, we have our process very streamlined. What should that tell the homeowner about how the rest of the project will go? Like if they sign on the dotted line, I mean, one of the primary fears that we see that we have to overcome with homeowners is we are basically going to move into your house and be, interacting with the two, honestly, the two most important things for you. It's going to be, I'm going to be around your family and I'm going to be destroying your house. Right. So how can we overcome the fear of a homeowner signing on the dotted line and all of a sudden it comes to construction and woof, I made a mistake. Mm-hmm. If we can present ourselves so well put together up front, it builds that confidence to say, okay, the rest of this project should be great because look at how well they're doing. I mean, honestly, it's a challenge on our side, right? Because anything can happen during production and right. Throw the train off the rails. But ideally, process improvement through construction is another big thing that that I speak about, because we can't just do it all in sales and leave production to just flounder. There's a lot of process enhancement that happens there, but building that confidence up front, being tech forward, being communicative, fast and convenient processes. All of that instills confidence in the homeowner. And when there's confidence there, I tell you what, price becomes secondary or even tertiary to all of the other things that are on their mind when they're comparing estimates. Yep,
absolutely. So it's a great process, and I guess it goes without saying that this design fee then that you're getting up front of that 4%, it's really an additional revenue source for the company, right? Because obviously, you're going to sell those design fees. Not everyone's going to convert, but you're getting paid for your time, for your designs, and then the other thing I look at is like you already mentioned is conversions. Is like if somebody's going to pay you $8,000 as an example up front to do that design fee, the more money they've got invested into it, the higher your conversion is going to be. If they made that commitment versus saying like a $200 feasibility study or scope of work thing. If I can get that big
number
up front, man, my conversions are probably 90% plus for actually
way over 90%. Yeah, I think we've only had maybe two, walk away, and honestly, it was, they didn't realize that they didn't have the capital they needed to pull it off. Renovation loans, not getting until the last answer. So honestly, real close to 100% success rate. Once we sign design agreements for full price, there's not a chance that they're not moving forward. So honestly, if you think about it, we're only ever spending time in our design and sales mechanism working with clients that are actually going to move forward. We're cutting out, 60, I would say 90% of our time, but let's just, maybe 60% of our time that we had been spending on jobs that, take it so far and then we'll get the no. We have eliminated that from our schedule. It's allowed, like I said, allowed my sales team, instead of selling 4.5, we thought we were going to have to add another sales guy, add another designer, add an estimator. We have been able to grow from that to $8 million. And my sales team, they have busy weeks. If they listen to this podcast, I'm just going to say, I get it. I see you. I know how busy you are, but honestly, they can tackle their work. And there are days, I wouldn't say often, I'm not going to say often, but there are days that I recognize that my designers are waiting for the next step. They're like, hey, we're a little slow today. What can we do? And, we're talking about other fun initiatives now. We're talking about opening up a cabinet sale, like a retail cabinet sales organization within Cornerstone for additional revenue opportunities, just to keep the designers going. Again, that's one of those things that we have that, how can we increase revenue without increasing production? And that is one initiative that we have. But of course, in my head, I'm thinking overhead expenses. Do I have to hire another person? And right now, what we've done is we've increased our margin of bandwidth for our design team with all these processes. So we actually have an extra little bit of bandwidth for designers to spend time actually selling cabinets to builders and selling cabinets directly to homeowners.
Yeah. Now you're just extracting a higher percentage of each dollar, right, as those homeowners come through, not just your GC fee, but you're also going to get now, say, cabinetry. Yeah, it's really, really cool idea. Yeah, this has been awesome. Really, really important. And just so everyone that's listening here, I'm talking to AJ right now about incorporating render into our lead magnets and our booking campaign. So by the time you would actually have a phone call with your lead, you could potentially have that design, and if you're using something like a job tread where you can push that information into an estimate, so you're having a call with them that, like, as you mentioned before, AJ, it's like you're talking to them specifically about their particular project. You have the photos, you have a budget set up. There's such a higher quality level of conversation there that you can, again, go right into design like you're talking about and improve your conversions, 90% plus, 100%, as you described, without ever having to leave your office. What is so cool. So there's so much here that, I'm really excited actually just to learn more about what you've done and what your capabilities are. And, it all comes back to, you need to be using open API. And that's maybe sounds like I'm speaking Chinese, but our software is an open API. AJ has an open API. JobTread has an open API. So that means you can connect all these things together to create this rock star process. You can wow your customers. It can make life a lot easier at the end of the day for you and have much better work-life balance.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. APIs it's a bridge between softwares that allows information to travel in both directions.
Push and pull information, right? That's that.
Yeah, a lot of legacy softwares live on islands that don't have that bridge to allow information to transfer. And I think that a lot of the new softwares out there, a lot of the up and coming, softwares in our space are really honing in on this open API functionality, just to build an ecosystem. Every contractor has their own software that they like to work with. Let's just make them all talk to one another so that there's a seamless and steady stream of information. Things that you update here automatically get updated there. Information that you scan over here shows up here. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. Yeah.
There's an evolution, you're right, going on in the industry where it's like websites where 10 plus years ago, before WordPress came along, and everyone had their own proprietary platform, and it would do some things well and some things not so well, but you were limited to that ecosystem of that software. Now here comes WordPress. You build your website there. It's an open source platform. You can pick and choose thousands of plugins, make your website do whatever you want, and then you can also connect any software you want to that WordPress site by having an API. So that's where I see the industry really going here as well. Is just it's just a maturation of software in the home building industry.
Absolutely.
This has been really awesome learning about you. People want to know more. I'm putting your website here. It's render RENDR.com. We'll put a link right below here as well for if you're watching this video, you'll be able to grab the link and check out Render. And I know you guys have a 14-day trial, and like you said, hey, schedule the demo, learn more about what you're doing. It's just really, really exciting stuff.
Yeah, reach out if you have further questions. If any of your listeners have questions directly related to Render, how it helped Cornerstone. I've been chatting a lot with a lot of business professionals in the industry. Just a call, pick my brain, whether it's about Render or just kind of what we're doing at Cornerstone. Always happy to hop on a call. Like I said, I love talking shop. So I'm happy to do that. I'm easy to find.
So final word goes to you. Any final wisdom for any builder making some huge changes like Cornerstone did a few years ago?
Resilience is key, sticking with it. But honestly, one of the biggest things that we preach is the ability to embrace change, moving your company forward. If you are not moving forward, you are falling behind. So challenge yourself. We say it all the time. You just challenge yourself, scrutinize your process, really think about, okay, I know I'm doing things well. A lot of contractors do a lot of things better than most of their competitors. Just like we did at Cornerstone, there was a lot of things that we didn't want to, uproot and redo. But when we started to think about how we could change our process to make it better, we were surprised at how many things we were doing that, we could absolutely improve on. So scrutinize your process, your tech stack, your organization, find out where you're bleeding the most, start small, focus on things that you can, instantly change that maybe build into bigger things. But if you're not changing your company and positioning it well to sell faster and more conveniently, over the next 10 years, I think what we'll see is a kind of a wave of millennials that will push a lot of businesses that are ingrained in old, outdated processes and so on, just kind of push them to the wayside and allow companies that are embracing this change to really shine.
Yeah, agreed. Very wise words, Mr. AJ. Very wise words. Well, thank you again so much, AJ, for sharing your story, sharing about render scan, excuse me. And thank you for joining us in Conversations That Convert. And so from our brothers and sisters in Christ, may the grace of the Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all always. We'll see you next time on Conversations That Convert. Bye-bye.